space to live, learn, and flourish. So just a few reminders for today. We are streaming live on Facebook, and we're also recording so that this video can be watched in the future. And feel free to have your camera turned on or off, whatever you're more comfortable with. And also everyone is muted. So if you have a question, feel free to drop it in the chat box, and then we'll get to questions and answers at the end of our discussion today. So Melody Lake is a licensed clinical master's of social work and has a bachelor's degree in early childhood development, working as a special education social worker with preschool through 12th grade students. She has prior history of working as a children's protective service worker and a foster care worker for the state of Michigan. Her most important role is being the mother of three who can understand the trials and tribulations of parenthood. So thank you so much, Melody, for being here, and I will send it over to you.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm very excited to be here today. I'm going to be presenting to you the difference between really mostly about conscious discipline, the idea of kind of shifting our mind frame from our traditional form of discipline that a lot of us grew up on. A lot of us, it's still very prevalent in our society, but kind of switching a mind frame to conscious discipline. I want to let everybody know I'm not a conscious discipline trainer. I'm not trained to be a trainer. I am trained in conscious discipline. So I want to make sure that's noted, that there are formal trainings by trainers. This is more to get you aware of the idea of what conscious discipline is, and then giving you the opportunity to be able to go out and pursue the full training by a conscious discipline trainer, which I would highly recommend. Very good training. So again, we're looking at the difference between a conscious discipline versus traditional discipline. So my first question for everybody is to kind of get some ideas, and obviously nobody's going to tell me the answer right here, which is the difference between virtual and face-to-face, but is that why you're attending? Why did you want to sign up for this? And just kind of making yourself aware of exactly what your intentions are and what you're trying to get out of this today, this informational presentation. So are you doing this looking for ways to support someone else with their parenting techniques? Are you looking for new skills for your job? I know I use conscious discipline in my job every day, but I also try to use it at home. I'm looking for strategies for your child or a child in your home, or it just sounded like fun. It sounded like a good time. So just kind of be aware of what your intentions were for today, so that you know what you want to get out of this. So I did a slide introducing myself, but I kind of forgot that I'd already told Roz about myself. So so she already introduced all these things. I do have a bachelor's of science in early childhood development. I'm a clinical licensed master of social work. I'm a very imperfect mother of three. I present this to you with open arms as a mom who tries very hard to do this, but is imperfect. So I'm going to be using a lot of examples from my life. I'm going to be using my children's names in lieu of any other name, just to kind of explain how you can say things, different situations that have happened that might be good examples here. So I'm also a wife, a dance instructor, a friend, and a school social worker. So important things to know with this is that there is no, when it comes to discipline, whatever kind of discipline you're using, there is no one size fits all. Everybody is different. Every child is different. Every situation is different. So you might be taking this information, but using it in a slightly different way, a slightly different approach. This information is meant to be, it is not go from this step to this step to this step to this step. It's meant to be adjusted, and we want you to do that. We want you to be able to know that you can go back and forth between different techniques. And these strategies are going to require a shift in thinking, because again, I know I was raised with traditional techniques. And for me, it fared very well. I think I turned out okay, but it might require a shift in thinking from the way we were raised, and even how we currently parent or work with children in our work environment too. So it might be hard. Some of this, when I first went through the training, some of it was hard for me to wrap my brain around. So I just want to let you know that that's okay. That's normal. I felt it too. All right, there we go. What is traditional discipline? So that might be a question that you have. What is traditional discipline? What does that look like? So traditional discipline is it's a model that is very rule-based. Our society in general still very much works in a traditional discipline arena. That's kind of what we do. It's upheld by consequences to obtain obedience. So we want the external control. You have one person that's in control and they're going to control the other people around them. And then we use compliance we want compliance compliance earns rewards. So when you do well, you get something from that. And disobedience receives consequences. So you have the compliance, you get something; disobedience, you get a consequence. Frequent disobedience, a lot of times with this model, results in removal. So you're removed from the situation. So thinking at home, and I've used this with my kids as well too. And you need to go to your room. Go to your room right now. You leave this dinner table. I am tired of telling you, stop leaning up in your chair, go up to your room. Those types of things, that removal from the situation. It's fear-based, which sounds terrible. It's not. When I heard that, I was like, no, it's not, don't say that. But it is. It's controlling somebody through the use of fear. Somebody does not want the consequence. You get the obedience from somebody because they don't want the consequence. They have the fear of that. So it is fear-based and fear-driven. But it goes on the premises that it is possible to control others, that one person can control another, and that rules govern behavior. And that conflict is a disruption of the learning environment or any environment. Conflict is a disruption. It's not anything else other than just a disruption. And then you have the rejection that goes with it as well too. So now when you're looking at this, when I was building this PowerPoint, I was like, well, is traditional discipline always wrong? Are we always wrong to use this method? Is it terrible? You're a terrible parent if you use this, because it kind of makes you feel like, oh my gosh, I've been doing it all wrong. It's not always wrong. And for some people, it helps for certain periods of time. So I know when it comes to, I work with in special education, so I work with children with disabilities. Some disabilities need a more black and white approach to it initially. And that's based on what we know now. All of this stuff, when it comes to discipline, when it comes to behavior management, all of this stuff is shifting. There's so much research out there that's still being conducted. So based on what we know now, the best approach for some disabilities is the more black and white approach. So the if-thens, if you do this, then you get this. Whether that be if you do something good, then you get something good, or if you do something bad, then you get something bad. So we use a lot of if-then statements. And it is rule-based. This is the rule, you will follow the rule. All of our schools have handbooks. I know I have rules at my job, rules that you have to follow these rules. These are the guidelines. And if you don't follow these guidelines, then you will have some type of a consequence. So that is, it's not, the goals of this approach is to obtain compliance and to guide behavior, but it's not, there is another way. And I want you to be aware of that there is another way. And it is something that we are as a society trying to switch to. So the idea of conscious discipline. So conscious discipline, the definition is an emotional intelligence program to help adults and children respond from the higher centers of the brain instead of reacting from the lower parts of the brain. You might have done a little bit if you attended any of the trauma webinar that they had. I'm not sure if there was, if they talked about the brain, but I would imagine they probably did. But I'm going to do a little bit on that in a little bit as well too. So we're looking at going from the higher parts of the brain. We want to stay in the higher parts of the brain. We want to try to get out of the lower parts of the brain for life and conflict situations. So it is upheld, like the idea, the premise of this is it's upheld on connection and contribution. So connecting to somebody, that connection to somebody can help improve behaviors, can help guide where you want them to go. And it's problem solving based. So not rule based, it's problem solving. So you take a situation and it's not, this is the rule, it's okay. What was the problem here and how can we solve it? We're looking for internal self-regulation. So being able to internally regulate yourself rather than having to externally. When it comes to the traditional idea, it's externally regulated, where you have one person controlling somebody else. We want this to be something that's guided within your own self. And we use conflict instead of, this is the idea that conflict is an opportunity to teach. The traditional form of it, remember the conflict is a disruption to the environment. This is, we're using conflict as an opportunity to teach. So you're changing, it's kind of changing the idea of what we think about conflict. Is conflict terrible. Yes, it's disruptive, it's uncomfortable, it makes us feel uncomfortable, but it's also how we learn, is by having things not always go our way. We learn how to do that. So changing our mind frame from having it be such a disruption to, okay, this is our opportunity to try to figure out a different path. Promotes permanent change in behavior and life skills. So when I think about this permanent change, I think about, when I look at my kids and they get in trouble for something, they look at me with this wide-eyed, kind of doe-eyed look, like, why are you so mad? So they can tell that I'm mad, and what they did was wrong according to what my beliefs and what how I'm parenting, that I didn't like what they did, but it's not necessarily, they don't necessarily understand the why. And that's kind of what we're looking at, is we need to help children understand the why behind what we're doing. So to promote that permanent change, so that they don't want to do something bad because they understand why it's bad, not just because they'll get in trouble if they do it. So this is relationship based. So the other one is fear based. This is relationship based. It's about creating an environment where you have a relationship with either your child or the child that you're working with. So it's the controlling ourselves. The traditional model is controlling others, that one person can control others. This idea has a completely different approach of learning how to control yourself. Again, I'm human and I get mad. And when I get mad, it comes out very quickly. And learning how to control yourself and take that moment to control yourself so that you can respond appropriately, so that you can stay in the right part of your brain to make logical, appropriate decisions. That's what this type of a training and this conscious discipline teaches you how to do, what you need to do and how you can respond. So you can keep yourself under control, so you can help guide somebody else in learning a new way to approach a situation, again, to teach that, how to resolve that conflict. So the connectedness governed behavior. So it's not rules governing behavior, it's connectedness. So being connected to somebody, being able to go to your person to help you guide your behavior. And then conflict, again, is the opportunity to teach, which we've already said. And this is the idea of acceptance. The other one is rejection. So sending them to your room, which again, I'm guilty of there's a point in time where I'm like, I don't want to see you anymore. I need you to go to your room. That's not very fair. It's the idea of, we want you here. But we want to figure out how you can be here in the healthiest way possible. So this is the brain model, which you might have already seen with the trauma. It might not look exactly like this, but it's the same idea. But through the trauma webinar, they might have presented something with the brain. I'm sure maybe other people have too, but we have different parts of our brain that help us problem solve. So we look at the survival brain, which is in our brain stem. So this is the am I safe area. This is our fight, flight, freeze area, where we, if we recognize something as potentially harmful for us, then that's the area of our brain that fires, and it fires all the chemicals that go with that. So if we want to tame that area, if we want that area to calm, then we have to use safety to do that. We have to create safety, a safe environment. In the school setting, we use, we're always looking for a safe space for somebody, a safe place for somebody to go, so that they can feel safe in that area, it can calm. So we have our limbic system, which is our next system, our emotional state, which is the blue area that you'll see. And this is the am I loved? Do you like me? Do you want me to be around? Do you enjoy having me here? So that's the area of your brain that's going to fire. And again, it fires chemicals out of that too, with however the situation is perceived and how the other person responds. That area might have a negative response, or it might have a positive response. If you want to soothe that area to make sure that the child knows that they are loved, they are cared for, we do want you here, you do that through connection. You do that through building a relationship with them, using connection type words, letting them know that we want you here, we want you to be safe. And then we have our executive state, our prefrontal lobes, which is where we want everybody to be all the time. I wish everybody could stay. I wish I could stay there. It's just a good, happy place to be, where we have optimal state for problem solving and learning. So when it comes to whether you're learning math facts, or you're learning life skills, or you're just learning how to not have a major temper tantrum when we ask you to take a shower, that's the part of your brain that we want that we want to have firing, we want to be ready to go, to problem solve a situation. So this is the part of your brain that asks the question, what can I learn from this? That's where we want, if you have a child that's dysregulated, a child that is having a moment that's not pleasant for anybody. A lot of times you'll see the brain, the goal is to have the brain move through these. So you have a situation where they're in a temper tantrum moment or some type of an outburst or dysregulated in some way, they're in the survival brain. And the goal at that point is to get them to a safe spot, a place where they feel safe. So maybe that's their bedroom. Maybe a child feels safe in their bedroom, and that's okay. But then also using words like "you are safe," "you're okay here. I will keep you safe. I'm a safe person." And then the connection part where we want you here. We want you to be in a happy place. We just want to be around you. We enjoy being around you. And then being able to problem solve after that. You can't get to the executive state without, from any type of a fight or flight situation. You can't get there without going through the steps of making sure a child has a safe place, a safe space, feels connected. Then you're going to get them to that prefrontal lobe area, and then where they're ready to say, what can I learn from this? I have a lesson to learn from this, so it doesn't happen again. And what I'm ready to go. I'm ready to learn it. This was one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I put in here, because I've been through a lot of different trainings that give me a lot of information, but I'm always left I shouldn't say I'm always, sometimes I'm left going, where do I start? I don't know where to start with this, because I got all this information and it's so good and I don't know now what do I do with it? So where you start with this is understanding the why, understanding why a situation is happening and being able to be receptive to that. So again, being able to control yourself so that you're ready to take in the information to understand why this might be occurring, not just reacting to the behavior. So behavior is communication. We know that behavior is communication. When a child can't tell you, not all children can tell you whether it's language or a language barrier because they're young, or just have a language barrier, or really just can't access that part of their brain, that executive functioning part of your brain to be able to tell you what's going on. They show you. So if you can't tell you, they show you. And really what they're saying is, I need you to show me what to do. Teach me something. I don't know how to do this on my own. So if you could think of and shift from behavior being disruptive, uncomfortable, annoying, and think of it as, this is a communication. This is a communication piece for me. And I'm trying to tell you something. I'm trying to tell you something through my actions because I can't tell you through my words. So we think about, like, if a child is dysregulated and they're really in a negative spot, their brain is altered in that fight or flight part of their brain. They're in their brainstem and they're in an altered state. Our goal is to get them back to that executive functioning state part of their brain, but that frontal lobe, but it's altered when they are dysregulated. So an example of that would be when we as adults have a cocktail. So we have a drink, and all of a sudden, what happens? Our behavior changes. When our brain is altered, our behavior changes. And so that's what happens too when a child is triggered in some way and their brain is altered to the fight, flight, or freeze. Even if it's just like a shower. I know that I battled this with my kids, is getting in the shower. I still battle it sometimes. Getting in the shower, and it just ends in a full-blown meltdown. And trying to figure out, what are they communicating to me? Because I know they're not afraid of a shower. What are they trying to do? But their brain is altered and they're not able to tell me the why. So they act differently. So it's my job to help guide them through the process of why. This is where it brings us to composure, keeping ourselves under control, finding ways to do that. This is hard. This is really hard, especially and speaking as a mom after a long day of working with kids in all different states of mind throughout the day. And I come home and then I have to keep my composure with my own kids. I have to keep myself under control. Not an easy task sometimes. Some days are easier than others, but so we look at the idea that an out of control adult loses the ability to discipline. If you are out of control, you lose the ability. You are no longer thinking out of your frontal lobe. So you're no longer thinking and problem solving a situation. You're coming more out of your brainstem, more out of that fight, flight, or freeze too. And you lose the ability to make a logical, disciplined decision. And anger, the idea is anger is external, is internal. Anger is something that is inside of us, that we feel inside. The behavior is what is external. So being angry is a very internal feeling, but behavior is external. So there's two elements, and these are important to know. I think these, when it comes to composure, are two of the most important things to know, is that there's stress and there's trigger thoughts. So usually you have some type of, there's some type of stress going on that starts the situation where you just start to feel uncomfortable. You're just a little bit stressed. So I'm like, I was making this PowerPoint. This was like a week ago at my house. I was making this PowerPoint at my house, and I'm just trying to put this together. I'm trying to think. And so that was stressful in and of itself. And then I have my kids going, Mom, I want a sandwich. Mom, I want this. Mom, I want that. And before I knew it, I was in that, like that picture, that explosive picture that you see at the bottom. That was my triggering thought. Like I had the stress, the uncomfortable feelings that had nothing to do with my children. And then a trigger thought happened. And a lot of times when those trigger thoughts happen, those trigger situations happen, we jump into a very negative cycle, assuming intent. So a lot of times we will say, you're just doing this to get me mad. I know you're just doing this to get me mad. You do this all the time. So we magnify the situation, like the child is always doing it. So you have that assuming intent of you're trying to make me mad. You do this all the time. You are just a bad kid. So you have that labeling where all of a sudden you say something that labels that child and gives them that thought in their brain that, oh, I guess that's what I am. So we have that, and it happens because we are out of control. It happens because we are not thinking logically at that time, because we are in our brainstem as well too. So the goal is to not get there and help give yourself a moment before you respond to not. So the example of this is that stress is the gasoline. And sorry, I'm in a school, so our bells are going off. But so stress is the gasoline, and the trigger thoughts are the match that create the explosion. So you pour a little bit of gasoline down, but the gasoline doesn't do anything unless you light a match, and then it explodes. So composure requires, this is how you can gain composure for yourself. You have to know what your trigger thoughts are. You have to know, you have to recognize that feeling of stress, and that when somebody's doing something and you feel that, I'm describing how my body reacts to stress and trigger thoughts. When I feel stressed, I feel uncomfortable, but then all of a sudden something triggers that, and I'm triggered into explosive reaction, and I can feel this, like it's like a ball in my gut that just like it just pops, and I am angry. I'm immediately angry and saying all the words I shouldn't say. So being able to know what your trigger thoughts are and how you react to that, that's how you control that. My biggest thing, and I'm jumping down one, but my biggest thing is breathing. Breathing is a very, very important part of this, is giving yourself a breath. If you've ever, I don't know if some of you have been through trainings with me, some of you have not, or meetings, lots of meetings, but there's times where anybody, again, I'm human, can get very frustrated. And I just take the biggest breath. You can probably see it. If you're on a meeting with me, every so often, you'll see me just take a really deep breath and let it out. And it really puts me back into a better place. It's not perfect. It's not that I'm not still angry. I'm not still stressed, but I'm able to give myself that moment. And in that, you also want to connect to the child, understand the why, be working through those thoughts in your brain of like, okay, we're going to get through this. My oldest daughter chucked a banana across, she was little, she's now 11, but she chucked a banana across the produce section at Walmart. And oh my goodness, I was very unhappy at the time, but I remember thinking she wanted the banana and I told her no. So understanding the why, like she wanted the banana. Next time, what I'm going to do is make sure I don't put the bananas in the cart until we're about ready to go to the checkout. So being able to understand the why, connect to your child instead of just reacting and losing control. And then the teaching, we have to teach and we have to model composure. If we want a child to be able to learn how to do this, internally regulate and find composure for themselves, we have to teach it. We have to model it. how this is. I could talk about it all day, but if I don't model it for my kids, I could say, you need to take a breath. You need to keep calm. But the minute I'm triggered and I get mad, I'm screaming, that's what they're going to do. So modeling that composure and finding ways to keep yourself under control. Now look at this picture, this little cutie here. So we use encouragement as well too. Now encouragement is one of those where you can use it in the middle of some type of a tantrum. You encourage a child and keep them going, but we also use encouragement. It's kind of the instead of being reactive to the situation, trying to be proactive. So using encouragement and using this model of encouragement consistently all the time to try to be proactive to help build the connection and prevent an outburst, or at least reduce the intensity of an outburst. So remember that if you are in a negative moment or you are in a positive moment, you're in that moment with your child. So whether it's your child or somebody else's child, you're in that moment with them. So while they're struggling, you are also struggling. You're both in it together. It's not one or the other. So a child needs to feel a sense of belonging in any situation, even a hard one. So that idea that they are wanted, that even if they're having a bad moment, that they're still wanted, they're still loved. We still want you here. Let's figure out a way to work through this. So a lot of times with this and examples that I had seen with conscious discipline is saying, you are safe. I want to be here with you. I want to help you, using those kind of words to help a child through a negative situation. Encouraging through noticing. This one was one that I saw a lot of people struggle with a little bit more, because this idea, that whole idea of saying good job. So noticing is effective praise. And when we talk about effective praise, you have this example of just saying like my daughter brings home if my daughter brought home a math test and she got an A on it, and I just look up and I go, oh, good job. And then I look down and I go back to cooking dinner. Not the most effective praise. And really, you can see that if you take a moment, you can see that in kids, that it doesn't fill their cup up with positivity the way that they needed that. It can be pretty deflating for them sometimes. Even though you said a positive word and you acknowledged what they did, they need a little bit more than that. So relying on describing and using a little bit more descriptive words and describing what you see. So you'd say, oh my gosh. And you start, a lot of times it's very helpful to start with the student, or with either the student or the child's name, and saying, oh my gosh, Ava, I saw you studying for that. I knew you were going to do so good. I'm so proud of you. Way to go. And you can throw a good job. It's not that good job should go out the window. It's still still a good sentence and it's positive, but you have to couple it with things, sandwich it in the middle of things where I noticed that you did something positive. I noticed that you must have worked very hard on that. Or as kids, just watching my kids change in their ability to color. Look at you stayed inside the lines. You must have been working so hard on that. And they'll, yeah, it was, Mom. And just being able to give a little bit more to the praise, not just the, oh, good job. Oh, way to go. Those moments, you got to add a little bit more to it. Notice them a little bit more. Now this is one that I thought might be a little bit difficult. It was for me to figure out and it was a hard pill to swallow. What type of disciplinarian are you? And I want you to be honest with yourself. So there's a passive type of discipline where you want to please others and make sure that they like you. So it's that parent or teacher or anybody that just doesn't want to acknowledge anything is wrong. I just would rather not acknowledge that. It's okay. Everything's fine. So you're just very passive about it. You're giving more power to the child and giving them permission to, I hate to say permission to defy you, but permission to not go the direction you're asking them to go. So saying like, oh, we're going to do this paper. Okay. So you answer it with that, okay. And then they go, no. And that happens. I see that happen quite often, that kind of that passive approach. And we think we're coming to them gently, and we're just kind of going to try to ask them, come in here. Let me ask you if you want to do this. That's a more passive approach, not always the most effective, especially if you have a hard kiddo that you're dealing with. That's like, I don't want to do your paper. They will just tell you no. it could be, the idea is a little bit more manipulative. Where should you be? What should you be doing? So you're asking the question instead of just saying it. This is where I need you to go. And this is what I need you to do. So ignoring the situations, hoping that they will go away. Again, very passive. And then we have another aggressive. There's aggressive disciplinarians that win by overpowering. So that idea of rule-based, more of that traditional discipline approach, the power struggle language. I need you to, you have to, I want you to. Those always, never. You always do this. You never do this. Those are much more aggressive. Empty threats. Those are the worst. Those are the worst. I am going to take your iPad away for the rest of your life if you do not do this. Well, not likely. You probably spent $400, $500 on that. I guarantee you're not going to take it away for the rest of their life. And then obviously the physical responding, which we, again, to each their own, but that's a more aggressive disciplinarian approach. And then we have the assertive approach. We also have the passive aggressive approach, and you'll see I have that with a big red X in it. Passive aggressive approaches are so hard for people to read, and especially kids. The idea that you're saying one thing and doing another, you're just not, it's very confusing. I know even as an adult, I don't tend to enjoy being around very passive aggressive people because I don't know how to read them and it makes me uncomfortable. And if it does it to me as an adult, I can guarantee you it does it to kids too. So whether it's your child or somebody else's child. So really stay away from the passive aggressive approach. But as the assertive approach, so what you focus on, you get more of. It's the idea of refocusing your energy on what you want them to do, not what you want them to stop doing. So focusing on telling them exactly what they need to be doing, guiding a child to say, this is what we're doing at this point. Not saying, stop doing that, stop doing this, stop. You're just telling them what you don't want them to do. You're not telling them exactly what they should be doing. So again, the assertiveness, this is where we want you to go. This idea of using assertive. So use a calm, assertive voice. So it's always, we are doing our, it's shower time. We're taking showers now. So it's a calm voice. I'm not aggressive in any way, but it's assertive. This is what we're doing. It's not really an option. I'm not giving a ton of options here. Tell a child what to do, not what you don't want them to do. Again, give real positive choices. So the choices need to be plausible. So again, I go back to the shower situation. I don't know why I'm stuck on that today, but shower situation with my kids where I give, I say, do you want to take a shower now so that you don't have to take it later? Or do you want to take it later and then you'll go to bed? Do you want to take it right before you go to bed, or do you want to take it now so that you can not have to worry about it later? So they're real possible choices. You're going to take the shower. It's not really, that's what's on the table is that we have to do the shower, but you get a choice on when you're going to do that and giving real options for that. Something that everybody can live with. Notice and guide the child with clear, direct language. So this idea that you are not using language that is confusing. So again, that passive aggressive approach or sarcasm. I was raised in a very sarcastic home. My mother is a wonderful woman. She was a teacher for many years, but sarcasm is like a second language for her. She's very fluent in sarcasm. Sorry, I have to plug in my computer. So when you use any type of passive aggressive approach or not clear language like that, you're going to confuse a kiddo on what they need to do. So sarcasm does that. It can be very confusing, and then they're not really sure exactly, did you want me to do that or did you not want me to do that? Give usable information. Always give information that they can use, not stuff that a lot of times we talk people to death. We talk over and over and over. That was my father. Again, wonderful, wonderful man, but he talked so much that you lost track of what you were expected to do. So speak in very concrete terms. Use very specific language. Again, exactly what you want them to do. And you don't have to say very much. So how many times do we say it? How many times do you say it? How many times do you use your assertive, calm voice and say it? You say it until they do it. You say it over and over and over until they do it. And then when they do it, it's time to celebrate. Then it's praise time. Fill that cup up with praise. we always have to assume when it comes to children that there's positive intent. No child wants to do the wrong thing, even if it feels like that sometimes. Oh, they just always do it. They just want to be bad. They don't. No child wants to be bad. No person wants to have any type of a negative situation that makes them feel in a not happy place or put them in more of the fight or flight. So assuming positive intent, you must see a child differently in order for them to behave differently. So you have to assume that they want to get to the place of regulation. They want to get to that frontal lobe. So it's easy for children to see themselves as bad or unworthy. So again, when we use that when we talked about that labeling at the end, you're just bad. And it is for us, for adults. It's not just kids. It's a lot easier for us to see the negative than it is for us to see the positive. So they tend to create self-fulfilling prophecies. If they believe that they are bad or unworthy, they're going to create situations or may create situations that mimic that. So reframe the call for love. So reframing it and rethink about it as this is a positive, there is intent here, there's positive intent. I know that the behavior exists for a reason, it's communication. So reframing it as the idea of it's a call for love, a call for help. And these are some really important questions to ask yourself is what do they want? So when you're looking at composure and trying to figure out the composure for yourself and how you can guide a child through that. So what do they want? What do they need? What is their positive intent? So basically, what are they trying to say to me? What is their communication piece? And then it says over here, when children are upset, offer empathy and positive intent first, then ask questions and facilitate problem solving. So at first you offer them the positive, you offer them your empathy, that what they're going through is hard, that you acknowledge what they're going through is hard, that we're going to get through this together. I'm going to be here for you. I know that we want to get there together. And then you start asking questions for what's going on and what went wrong. And then you facilitate the problem solving. So the consequences, everybody's like, well, does that mean I can't give consequences? No, of course you can give consequences. Consequences are a part of life. Consequences are good, consequences are bad. So what matters most is that we learn from our mistakes, though, that if the consequence was a bad consequence, something happened, that we learned from it. So there's options when it comes to consequence. So you have that natural consequence, which is the goal for everybody. If there's a situation where a natural consequence occurs, it's beautiful because you don't have to do anything else with it. If that student is tipping in their chair and you told them to stop, you asked them, can you please put all four legs we need to put all four legs in the ground. And they fall over and that's just kind of the natural consequence of it. It happens. Then chances are next time you say, remember what happened last time? Let's put all four legs on the floor so we don't fall over. It is a game changer. I love natural consequences. But when it comes to that, there's acronyms for all of these. So there's games, give guidance, allow the consequence to happen. That's hard sometimes because it's just, we want to grab the back of the chair and put them on all fours because you don't want to see them fall. But sometimes you just have to allow the consequence to happen. You model self-control, offer empathy, and provide new strategies. Imposed consequences are the circles. So those are the things that when we have to impose a consequence that happens. So you have the child and the other person. So you have the child in a situation. The adult in that situation decides on the imposed consequence, but we have to relate it to the safety logic. We have to it can't just be a random consequence. Like if you don't do your homework, you can't have something, or you have to somehow create it around safety. Like we have to do our homework so that we're learning this. If we don't learn, then if you're not willing to do your homework, then you're going to get the 0 at school. Then that will be the consequences, that it will impact your grades. And remember that that our goal is to get above this grade, and so you're relating it back to something. The consequence has to be related to the issue at hand. The child states back what they had heard, and then they listen and clarify. We have to listen and clarify if needed. So if a child doesn't seem to understand why the consequence is occurring, we have to be open to that and offering explanation. So a lot of times the kids will say, well, why? And we go, because I said so. Maybe offer a little bit more than that. And I'm guilty of that. At the time, you're just like, because I said so, this is why we're doing it. But they need a little bit more with understanding. And then we have empathy and consequences. So we also have problem solving as well too. So problem solving in situations, consequences. So you identify the problem, you offer empathy and initiate the mediation process. You ask the child to think, how are you going to solve your problem? So you have this problem, you had this moment on the playground where the social interaction didn't go very well, or you treated your sibling this way. What are you going to do to solve the problem? What do we need to do? So they might, a lot of times kids are very amazing in trying to come up with their own ways to solve a problem and what they're going to do. And they buy into a lot better if they're part of the process. And so then you have to clarify what children are choosing for the solution. So make sure that you understand and they understand, repeating back exactly what's going to happen. And then everyone celebrates because they problem solved the situation. And when they do it, they execute that. It's just amazing. And we should celebrate and praise them for that. So in summary, we have the idea with conscious discipline is keeping control of your own emotions so that you can guide and model for children. So we have to keep that composure, that control of ourselves so that we can help guide a situation, even though those situations are hard for us too. And connections can help guide behavior, the connection piece. So instead of just the rules guiding the behavior, the connection that you can build with your child or somebody else's child, that connection can help guide that. Conflict and mistakes is an opportunity to teach. So we have to stop the idea of with conscious discipline is to stop looking at conflict as just a disruption. It's just a bad choice, a bad behavior. It's saying that this child is lacking in some type of skill or some type of understanding of how to resolve a situation, and we need to use that as an opportunity to teach. And then make sure the consequence is appropriate for the child in the situation. So make sure that you're using the best consequence option that you can. Again, natural consequences are amazing. Problem solving is amazing, but sometimes we have to use the imposed consequence as well too, but making sure that they understand why, because it's linked to safety and logic for how a situation is done. So, all right. And then again, I need to give credit to Kendra Curtis Tomatsky. She is an employee at Clare County RESD. I took a lot of this information from the presentation that she gave through our training. She's incredible. I highly recommend doing a training with her. She did give me some resources that she uses as well too. So there's consciousdiscipline.com and Beyond Behavior Management, the 6 life skills children need. I haven't read that one yet, but I'm a reader, so that might be on my list next. The other trainings, I just threw on there another training that kind of goes along the same, is very similar as the restorative practices trainings, the idea of restoring relationships and building those connections with others. So yeah. And now I believe we're going to be turning it back to Roz for, I believe it's a questionnaire, I think.
Yes, we're going to do a survey first, and then we'll do Q&A after.
And then do you want me to continue sharing my screen or no?
You can take it away and then we might be able to see some people. Okay. That would be great. Thank you so much, Melody, for all that wonderful information. I could listen to you talk about it all day, I think. It's such a great reminder as a parent and as a professional working with children. So really, really great stuff.
You're welcome.
So if you guys could go ahead and take a few minutes to fill out the survey on your screen. This is our first time doing a webinar series, so it'll really help us to get some feedback and how we can grow and do better for our next round of trauma webinar series.
Okay, so we don't have any questions yet, but we have a couple comments. The first one, it says, I love refreshers for parenting skills. I also love building community conversations around parenting because it's a hard job. Another person said, this has been one of the best parenting switches I have ever done, really emphasizing what they did well and why I'm proud of them instead of just telling them a good job.
I'm glad that one resonated, because that one was a hard one. When I did the training, I knew quite a few people that was a hard concept, is the idea of taking out the good job. It's not that good job is bad, still use it, but smush it in with a lot of extra positive words.
Okay, somebody asked, is there any training that is available for our DHHS counties for staff?
I would definitely reach out to the RESD and the Clare County, I should say, Clare and Gladwin County RESD, and have them put you in touch with with Kendra Curtis Tomaski, I think. And she's our conscious discipline trainer. She's amazing. She's wonderful. And if she's not, I don't know what county you're looking for specifically for DHHS, but if she's not available to go to your county, then she might be able to guide you in the direction of somebody that can do the training in that county. Her name is, it's in the, I don't know if you, I guess I don't know if you can access my thing, but it's Kendra Curtis. So Kendra, Kendra, Curtis, Curtis. I want to say there might be 2 S's, and then it's hyphenated.
I'm looking up her email right now. I'm going to see if I can put her email in the chat box.
That would be awesome. And it's Tomaski, Tomaski, I believe.
Okay, somebody said they're really enjoying the series. Thank you. Another person asked, how does interaction with an older sibling affect results? Say parents are dedicated to working with conscious discipline, but older siblings are prone to explosions, labeling, etc. Will the child's behavior still improve?
It will. It definitely can, because we're looking at, again, safe places, safe faces too, right? So it's about creating that connection with your child so that if their older sibling is being a goober to them, that they can still go to you and they can still have that connection. I say goober because I say goober in my house all the time. Because it's not that kids form connections to their older siblings and to their siblings, and siblings can definitely have an impact on self-esteem and how somebody views themselves. But at the same time, if you are counteracting that as a parent and you're the safe face and you're able to kind of counteract that sometimes to get on them about how they're responding. I have to do that with my older daughter. She's 11 going on 16 and just thinks she knows the world. So her tone of voice is terrible. Her words aren't always very nice. Of course, my reaction is, what did I do wrong? But the reality, it's just the age. And so trying to teach her as well too, and calling her out, and I call her out in front of the other kids to say, that isn't, your tone of voice is not appropriate. I don't talk to you like that, and you don't talk to me or them like that. And having to kind of get after her with that, that's how I handle it sometimes, but also being able to, there's lots of times where I sit her down and I say, remember, they're looking at you, just giving her that moment, that explanation. And you have to do that you can't do that in the moment of dysregulation where the explosion's happening, the fire is lit. Nobody's hearing you at that point. So it's always about having that conversation afterwards and really pumping her up to be to understand her role in her sibling's life as well too. But if you can be, for the younger kids, if you can be the safe face for them, if you can be that person that's kind of filling their cup up, then they will be okay.
Okay, we have another question. What helps you to keep on top of these ideas and strategies? It's so easy to drift to old ways or the strategies other people around us are using. What helps you with this?
Training, being open to, like, just being here at this webinar and listening to this. This is refreshes this idea for you, taking the opportunity to do this. I have to do that in my job too. Never be afraid to go through, like, oh, I've already been trained in conscious discipline. I would go through the conscious discipline training every year if I could, if they would give that to me. I would go through it every year, just so I can refresh my thinking on that. And because every time I leave a training, I feel better about that. Having somebody else remind me what I need to do instead of trying to always recall it in my brain. What am I supposed to do? Especially in a time of struggle, I can't always recall that. So being able to access different trainings, different webinars, reading. I'm a big reader. Not everybody's a reader, I understand that, but I'm a big reader, and just constantly trying to be open to the idea of new information. So the fact that you're here is a great step forward.
I want to just touch base on that a little bit too. I think these new strategies are difficult to try to implement, but if we can just do it little by little, it can really make a change. And having grace in ourselves as a parent, that we can slowly work on things, but it won't always be 100% perfect all the time. But as long as we're taking steps and doing the best that we know how to do,
Mhm.
really can take you a long way.
That is it for the questions.
All right, do we have any last minute questions before we close up? We'll just give it a few minutes. Oh. All right, well, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody said yes.
Oh,
She's typing.
sorry.
She's
Oh,
typing
perfect.
right now.
All right, sorry.
And then there's awkward silence. I'll fill
Just
the space right up.
just a reminder too, we'll be sharing, it's this video is sharing live on Facebook and it will be saved. So if you guys want to go through and check this out again, those slides were really good. Mel, do you have, will you be able to share that brain image with us
Absolutely.
as a handout? That was really, really good. It really explained,
I like
that
that.
well.
I actually pulled that off of the consciousdiscipline.com.
Okay, cool.
I thought that was the best brain image that I mean, I've seen a lot of those different images that explain it very similar, but that one was a good one.
Yeah, if you could share that with us, we'll put it, we'll post it with your video.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the question is, do you have a suggestion on helping a spouse or co-parent if they are in an explosion moment? Do you interrupt their moment?
This one, that's a hard question because you're teetering on the line of undermining when it comes to parenting, right? And so that's a hard one. And you want to, the best suggestion I can give is to, on a one-on-one basis, sit down with them and have a plan for, if you're losing control, tap out. Like, you need to go somewhere and you just say, listen, I'm going to lose it. I'm going upstairs. And they can separate themselves from the situation, but having a plan for them and giving them a plan ahead of time. I would say, do you interrupt them? It depends on how aggressive or negative the situation is getting. If it really becomes a situation that can be either a safety risk or really detrimental for your child, then yes, you'll want to intervene. You don't just want to step back with those. But if it's a moment where they're just like the rest of us the rest of us have occasionally, I'm just assuming everybody has one, where we just lost it for a moment and it's not going well, let that moment slide through and then approach later and say, listen, that wasn't a great way to do that. There's better ways. And I'd like you to, next time, can we agree that this is what we'll do? Because I'm going to need that sometimes too. I'm going to need to tap out and I need to know that you're going to pick up where we left off with making a good logical decision. So again, you just have to, it's a line, it's a fine line between undermining and then looking at safety, making sure that your child is safe and that it's not a horrible negative situation that could hurt them. But yeah, that's a hard one. Good question, but hard situation.
Okay, that's it for the questions. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Melody, for being here. And thank you for all of you that participated and were here with us today and asked questions. We appreciate you. And please join. If you look at our TASC Facebook page, it's called TASC Clare County. It's our Facebook page, and you can find all of these webinars and all of our past webinars that we've had and any updates and reminders for upcoming events. And please join us next week, next Thursday at noon, right here, same Zoom link. We will have Sarah Poet with marijuana and vaping youth trends, and Sarah's from 1016. So we're excited for that next week's webinar. So thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your sunny Thursday, and we'll see you next week.